Hey everyone, I have another guest today. It's a Neovim Core Maintainer. Her name is Maria. How's it going, Maria?
Doing good. Yeah, it's a Friday and happy to be here.
Yeah, it's holidays. Is
Yeah.
it holidays where you're at or no?
Yeah, so I'm in Seattle and I don't have the day off of work or anything, so it's not really like it's Easter weekend, but it's not a work holiday.
Okay, okay,
Yeah.
wonderful. Okay, so you currently work on Neovim, right? In the core team. Would you like to share a little
Right.
bit more about that?
Yeah, so I'm the kind of person that when I see that there's a bug in my plugin or even if it's outside the Neovim ecosystem, if I'm if I know enough about the bug, I will try to fix it. And so I've made a lot of open source contributions like that. I think that that's the reason that I don't have like a single successful side project because I get distracted with all of the tools that I'm using, and then I just end up contributing to like the editor or the LSP instead. Um, but yes, right now the main project that I've been contributing for almost 2 years now, or longer than that actually, has been Neovim. And yeah, right now I'm working on a feature, on an LSP feature that I'm looking forward to.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so LSP related stuff, that's what you're currently working on. Any other
Yeah.
stuff that you have worked on any of them directly?
So something that's not LSP related, I've done some tree-seeder stuff as well.
Mm-hmm.
That was actually my first contribution to Neovim was adding the query editor. Um, and that was because I wanted to learn more about the tree-seeder APIs. And then I thought that um, contributing something that used those APIs would be great. And I say that sometimes my contributions are a bit selfish in that regard, that it's not that I just contribute for to make the world a better place. I do it because I want the feature myself or I just want to learn how to do something and I'm like, well, while I learn might as well give something back to the community. Um, yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely do the same. If I contributed to something, it's because it's
Yeah.
something that I want or that I need. So, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's definitely a good motivation to have, to know that you also want that feature.
Yeah, but it helps improve the product, right? So that keeps the
Right.
product alive
Right,
and
right, right, right.
fosters
Yeah.
innovations and all that stuff. Okay. And for how long have you been using Neovim?
Like a couple of months before I started contributing to it. So I remember that it was around March of 2023, around the time. And the reason that I remember that it's because my birthday is in March, and I remember spending my like around my birthday just um, I playing around with distros, and then I found Kickstart, and I remember spending an entire weekend that I just playing around with the Kickstart configuration and being so overwhelmed of like, how do I configure this? How do I get the highlight name for this thing that I want to change? And I spent like an entire weekend trying to make the perfect editor, and I was so happy with it. But then I realized, gosh, I just spent an entire weekend on this, and I still feel that I have like no idea what to do. And I was also new to Vim Motions, and so I thought after that, I don't have time for this. I need an editor to actually like be productive at work. But it was it was kind of very funny because I spent almost like a month using Neovim during my free time and feeling addicted to it, but also realizing that I didn't have like enough time to tweak my configuration and all of that. And I tried going back to VS Code and I like removed my .config Neovim files and removing my .files and being like, I cannot do this again. And then I would always go back, and I spent months that my my keyboard skills and just like my muscle memory was broken because I was still not entirely used to V motions, but I was not like able to use the mouse again. And so I felt that I just couldn't type anymore. Um, but yeah, to answer the question, I guess that it's been like 3 years.
Okay. Yeah, I do remember the first times that I met Vim, right, in servers,
Right.
and I didn't like it. I always say the same thing, you know. I was like,
Yeah.
who uses this and why did they go through all this trouble? And I just went back to
Right.
Nano and was like, no, I was a happy Nano user, but I just decided to to learn it. It took me like 4 times. I even created a blog post before I even started taking Vim seriously. So Vim
Right.
motions and all the stuff that I wanted to learn, but I never did it. You know, I don't know why it happened, but I cannot go back now.
Yeah, I think that the last thing that truly made me leave VS Code, which was my main editor before Neovim, was Copilot. I was just so fed up that every single time that I would hit tab, it would accept the Copilot suggestion instead of like navigating the completion menu. And I have like a super tab setup that I use tab to navigate through the completions and also navigate through a snippet. And so it's like a conditional tab that it depends on the context that
Mm,
I'm on. And so that's something that a super tab setup it's great in Neovim because you have full control over that. But then in VS Code, when I was like, I don't want Copilot to be taking over all of my language features. I just want to control this myself. Um, so I think that yeah, that was like the last thing that truly made me get tired of VS Code entirely.
okay, okay. You mentioned distributions. You started with distributions, then you mentioned also Kickstart. What did you end up with?
Yeah. So I didn't really. I was. I was never really a user of a full distribution. I am someone that I really like understanding how the configuration works, and all of these distros hide by design. They hide all of the details so that you don't need to worry about that. You just configure a couple of variables, and then they deal with installing the necessary packages, installing the LSPs. But then I didn't like that black box experience, and so I decided to use Kickstart instead. And that was definitely, I think, that the best choice. I think that that's the best way to get started with Neovim. But what I did is that instead of just copy pasting the 1,000 long file, a thousand that file with 1,000 lines right now that it's
Mm-hmm.
huge. What I did instead is that I created the file. I created my init.lua file, and I would copy paste the snippets of Kickstart as I learned what they did. And so instead
Mm-hmm.
of just like copy pasting the entire three-seater code, I was like, okay, this starts three-seater. Let me see, like, what does that mean? And once I understood, like, okay, this is like enabling three-seater highlighting, this is enabling indentation. Then at that point, once I understood what that piece of the snippet did, at that point I would paste it into my configuration.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and so that I followed that approach for a couple of weeks, and then I once I needed more than one file for my configuration because my init.lua file was just huge,
Mm-hmm.
then that's when I got fancy and started like importing modules and then creating a folder for my plugins and
Mm-hmm.
creating all of my setup. And since then, I've always maintained my own dot files.
Okay, you started with Kickstart then. Okay, and do you consider your Neovim setup done already, or do you constantly tweak it?
I think that it's pretty done. It's actually, I think that it is a very funny fact that my most popular repo on GitHub are my dot files. I'm like, okay, I guess that this is what I'm going to be known for. Um, but yes, right now they're in a state where I'm pretty happy with the plugins that I have installed. Um, and I'm not the kind of person that if I see like a new plugin on Reddit, I will be like, okay, let me try it and like refactor my entire configuration. I'm like, no, like what I have, I'm pretty happy with what I currently have. So yeah, I think that it's pretty stable. Although I do have to say that I do miss those days when I was tinkering with my configuration all the time.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, I almost want something to break so that I have an excuse to configure Neovim again.
Yeah, that's one thing with distributions, right? Depending on the person that manages that distribution. The one that I use is lazygit, right? So
Right.
I don't know how to pronounce it. Folke, Folk, everyone says it different, right? So
Yeah, I also don't know how to pronounce his name. Folke.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, I call him Folke, but that's the way that I know new about new plugins. That's the way that I learned, for
Right.
example, about blink.cmp, because suddenly
Right.
my stuff was broken and I was like, what's happening here, right? And
And I do have to say that a lot of the code that I use for my own configuration has just been inspired by Folky because he's basically like holding the entire like Neovim ecosystem on his shoulders, together with mini plugins.
yeah, Chesnovsky.
But yeah, I think that I've definitely taking a lot of code from lazygit in my own dotfiles just because yeah, those are probably like the nicest plugins that are worth trying out.
Yeah, and if it's approved by Folke, you know that it's that it's going to
Yeah,
be
yeah,
good.
for sure. Yeah,
Did you
for sure.
migrate already to Blink, or you're still on
I
nvim-cmp?
did.
Yeah.
Yeah, I did. I did migrate to Blink. Um, to be entirely honest, I don't think that it is like much faster. I didn't migrate with the motivation of like, oh, it's written in Rust, it's going to be like super fast. I
Mhm.
didn't have a performance issue with nvim-cmp. The main reason that I ended up switching it's because it was making me a little bit worried to see that nvim-cmp wasn't being very much maintained, and that there were
Mm,
like a lot of PRs um, with bug fixes and like performance improvements, and the last change had been made months ago. And that's the reason that I think someone else opened Magazine, which is like a fork of nvim-cmp, but with all of those PRs merged. So I was like,
mm,
yeah, I don't like it when projects just like um, look
get
a bit
stuck.
dead.
Mm,
Right.
okay. And how did it go with breaking changes? Blink and breaking changes. How has it
I
been?
mean, so I'm a core maintainer and I build Neovim from source. And I remember like it was like around 2 years ago. I remember there was like this bug in Neovim Core, in like the core C code, that it would make Neovim segfault every couple of minutes, and that ended up happening like around a week. And it was like a bug in Vim. It got fixed. It's fine. But the reason I'm telling you this, it's because I build Neovim from source. I'm used to breaking changes. I'm used to sometimes I will build Neovim or update a plugin and stuff will break. Um, I've I've even been the cause of some of those like breaking changes, and so I'm pretty comfortable with handling those. And often when that happens, I end up making if it's a fix that I know how to resolve, then I'll make the PR in Neovim or in the plugin itself.
Interesting. Yeah, some
Yeah.
people tend to forget that Blink. I don't know if it's still in beta, but it.
Yeah, it's not in beta anymore. I believe that the maintainer released version 1 a couple of weeks ago, I think.
Okay, okay. So we should
Yeah.
expect less breaking changes, but the past few months were a little bit crazy in that aspect.
Yeah.
But it's a
Yeah,
lot
and I
better.
guess that with a distro it gets a bit harder because if there's a breaking change there, then and if you're a lazy beam user, then you need to wait until Folky makes the change, and Folky goes on vacation like every month, and so
Yeah.
it takes a while. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't wait. I try to fix them myself because I configure lazygit to update my plugins when I open it, right? And that's a good
Right.
thing and a bad thing. Because of
Right.
breaking changes, it's bad, you know.
Right.
But
For sure.
yeah, yeah, okay. And where can people find you? Do you want to share about that a little bit?
Yeah,
If
for
you want to
sure.
share your screen and just show your stuff.
Yeah, so you can find me on GitHub. I'm not too active on like a lot of social media places, but you can follow my contributions to Neovim. Right now, let's see. I think that I have a single PR open. Um, but yes, you can see like go there, see what I'm working on. Um, yeah, I have those. I also have Twitter or X or all of that. You can see my cat and myself. Um, yeah, I usually use like a variation of the same username in all of my social media. So it is Maria Solos or Maria Solano Os. But yeah, a variation of that, and you'll find me. Um,
Okay.
I've also been very active on Reddit, um, especially on the Neovim subreddit. And I also have a couple of videos. I've been a speaker at the Neovim conference during the last 2 years. So you
Oh,
can take a look at those videos as well. Um,
interesting. Okay.
yeah, the first one, yep.
And are there any plans to keep creating videos or?
Um, so outside the Neovim conference videos, I did make a video about how I go around debugging my Neovim configuration using the Lua debugger. Um, and that was just because people on Reddit were asking for it. But
Mhm.
um, not really. I guess that I'm a bit camera shy, and
Ah,
there's like a lot of work on video editing. But I mean, if a lot of people on Reddit go like crazy and say that they want more videos or like specific topics, then I might create a couple more. Yeah, but
okay.
I don't think that I will join the cool kids and become a streamer anytime soon.
Yeah, it's a lot of work because you basically have to run like a company. You have to do everything. It's
Right. And I don't even understand how Twitch works. Like,
oh
yeah, like it is too much work. And
yeah.
so, yeah,
Yeah, me neither. I'm just used to YouTube, and
right.
I have no idea how Twitch works. Um, and can you tell us a little bit more about the experience of maintaining open source? How do you feel about it? Like,
Yeah,
is
so what I so far my experience with open source has only been with dev tooling. I used to work at Microsoft with the VS Code and TypeScript team, which are of course two open source projects, according to Microsoft's definition of open source. Though, but um, I feel that with dev tooling, with every feature, I remember that the first piece of feedback that I would receive, it would be, how do I disable it? And so that's something that with dev tooling, you will never make a feature that will make everyone happy, that will fit everyone's workflow. And so I think that my experience with open source is that you will need to like have a very good self-esteem that sometimes you will receive negative feedback and people will be unhappy about a feature, and it's fine, it's perfectly fine. I think that my main goal when I make features to Novim, it's not making everyone on Reddit happy, although that does make me feel pretty good, but my main goal is what is Novim's core philosophy, and make sure that those features stick to that. And so when I was working on VS Code and adding new features there, um, I wasn't thinking of, okay, but how does this fit into the VS Code editor like philosophy? It was more of like, what does suit Microsoft better? But with Neovim, I kind of want to know, okay, Neovim is very strict, and we truly believe that we should implement everything that the LSP says, and we don't want like an extra feature just because there's a nice plugin that does the same thing, but it's like, no, but the protocol doesn't say that we should do that. And so um, yeah, like a good example for that, it is how I implemented the snippet engine, and
mhm.
um, the main motivation to do that is because we wanted to have native completion, which I also help implement and port. And when I implemented that, a lot of people were saying, "Oh, can we also have like third-party libraries and write our custom snippets that would be loaded by Neovim directly in?" Well, that was not the goal. Like we want snippets in order to be able to process snippets in completions when an LSP server sends that in the completion response. loading your custom snippets that would be part of an external library. And we do have plans on exposing that API maybe in the future, but yeah, that's...
Would you mind explaining a little bit more then on that part of the snippet? So I use my custom snippets. I use luasnip for that. So
Right.
this is not what you're mentioning, right? It's something different. You mind just explaining it to me like I'm 5 years old so that I understand? I don't know if you want to share your
Right.
screen and show it.
Yeah, I can do that. And so let's see. So here is a PR in November. I added the snippet API. And so and actually let me open Neovim snippet, the documentation, maybe game snippet. Where is the documentation for that? But there we go. So Neovim has this minimal snippet API that it follows the grammar defined by the protocol, which is here, which looks very mathy, but basically you would be familiar with it if you've ever written your custom snippet in luasnip or in vscode, where you have placeholders using like the $sign and square braces, and yes, you would write your own snippets, and this is the grammar that vscode uses, that the LSP uses. And so then the goal of this feature was to be able to process those custom snippets when an LSP server sends that from the editor. Right now, this API, it's only used in the editor when processing completion responses. And so, for example, if you have your custom snippets in your Neovim configuration, there would be nothing in the editor loading that file. And so there's currently no support for that there. I am aware, because I did try it out with blink.cmp, that it does. Blink.cmp is able to use this snippet API from Neovim, and it will also load your custom snippets that you have in your inside like your snippets folders in your runtime path. And so I do know that other third-party libraries have been able to use this.
Okay. So if I want to have my custom snippets, I continue to use luasnip the way that I have been doing it, right?
Yes. Well, you can actually not have luasnip and have blink.cmp. Let me actually check that. Here, blink.cmp has like a documentation website. But if you can also use blink.cmp without having luasnip, and blink.cmp will automatically load your snippets from config and vim snippets.
Vim snippet, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yep. I have used those snippets. That's what I was using actually. I don't know. I just migrated to luasnip because I wanted stuff really, I don't know, a lot of crazy stuff happening in my snippet. So I guess that I don't know. I just moved to luasnip, but it's okay.
Yeah. Friendly snippets feels like an overkill to me. What I personally do is that so I do have a snippets folder, and I just personally I find that most LSPs have enough snippets, but I do find that TypeScript or TS server in general doesn't have enough snippets in their own completions. And so the snippets that I have here are the ones that vscode uses. And so instead of like, when I feel that the snippets that are in my completion menu don't feel great enough, I will see like, okay, let me see what vscode has over here. And vscode has like the code for most LSPs in Microsoft VS Code. and it is inside extensions. And so here, if I go to TypeScript basics, here is where they have their snippets. And so I basically like copy pasted the snippets and the ones that I wanted. And this is the snippets following the grammar that I showed over here. And so
Okay.
that's why they work.
Because friendly snippets has thousands, right? I know
Right.
about friendly snippets because Folke loads them into blink loads friendly
Right.
snippets and my luasnip snippet. So I have a lot, but I get what you mean. It has a lot. Those friendly ones have tables, anything you can imagine, right?
Right.
Okay, wonderful. So we already went over the distribution. You use your own config, of course. I noticed that the file explorer that you use is mini.files. Is that your preferred one?
Yeah. Yeah, I love mini.files. When I first started using Neovim, one of the first plugins that I installed was Neo3, because I felt like, well, I just need a tree explorer because that was like the regular VS Code layout that I was used, like tree explorer on the left, terminal at the bottom. But then I was like, wait, I don't actually need to look at my file explorer at the time. And a couple of months later, mini.files came out, and I was one of the first users. I loved it because I find that compared to, for example, with other buffer explorers like Oil and Vim, mini.files, it's like the perfect combination of having a buffer in the sense that you can still use like Vim motions inside that explorer, but you also have the intuitive tree structure. And so I really like that. So yes, mini.files is definitely one of my favorite plugins.
Okay. And the preview. That's one of the reasons. Yeah, because I always say that to me personally, mini.files is like a mix between oil, because it allows me what you said to use Vim motions everywhere, and Neo3, but with the telescope preview. So it's like, I don't know.
I don't actually use a preview.
Oh, you have it disabled?
Yeah, I don't use a preview and I also use fzf-lua. And so for example, if in my file explorer I don't have the preview enabled by default, but then if I tab through it, I can see it. But yeah, normally I don't find the preview to be very useful for my workflow personally.
You have it disabled. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, I do keep it enabled all the time. Maybe for no reason. Well, yeah, sometimes I think I find it useful. I'm like, what is this file? And I don't want to open it. Maybe I just want to YYP, just duplicate the file or something. I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, this is the file. So I think I do. I do like the preview. And is that from Neo3, then you switch to mini.files, and that's the one that you use all the time now?
Yes, that's my preferred file explorer for sure.
Okay. And what about your picker? What do you use? fzf-lua?
Yes, I was a telescope user, and then I was working the TypeScript code base, and you can see if we go to Microsoft TypeScript, the moment that I switched to fzlua was when I had to navigate through this folder, which, as you can see, like GitHub just fails because it has like more than 5,000 files, and this was just a pain to use a file picker with, and I found fzlua to be so much faster. And the file picker is probably the one that I use the most. And I love it, and I think that the maintainer is absolutely amazing. Yeah, and I also use fzlua for my code actions. And so here, my code action menu is there, and I even have like a preview. Well, I guess that this code action doesn't have a preview, but let's see. I think that this one, yeah. So this one yeah, so I do get a preview of what like the
Mm-hmm.
workspace edit that the code action would apply would be.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Okay. And have you tried Folke's snacks picker? Because he migrated all
Red,
of us from Telescope to
yeah,
fzf-lua, and I was like, I had some issues with fzf-lua with images. I don't know, it got stuck. It
right.
was an issue on my side for sure, skill issue, and I don't know what else. What other issues I had.
So going back to like our earlier topic on how my configuration is pretty much stable, and when there's like a new sensation on Reddit, everyone's like, oh, let's try this new thing.
Uh huh.
I know that everyone has been like creating new pickers, and there's like snacks picker, and then there's mini pick as well. And I did try mini pick. I thought that it was pretty nice, pretty minimal. But I'm very happy with fzlua. I'm also I like the fact that FSF it's also available on the terminal outside Neovim, and I also use FSF natively. And so it's nice to have this tool that I'm already familiar with outside Neovim available in my editor.
Okay. Yeah, and it's a good point that you brought up there. People, I read in Reddit, that people mentioned that they had issues with the telescope and big repos, right? You didn't have
Right.
that problem with fzf-lua. I wonder
I did not.
how you
Yeah.
did not. Okay. I wonder how Snacks Picker works with that huge repo. If Folke uses it, I guess it must be all right. And but yeah,
Yeah.
okay. And what color scheme was the one that you were showing on your screen?
So I use a variation of Dracula, and I maintain my own color scheme.
Mhm.
But yeah, and this is actually like I copy pasted most of the code of the Dracula and theme color theme, and then I
Mhm.
made some variations of it. But anytime that I need to pick a color theme, I'll use Dracula. I do tend to use Dracula and then I tweak it to make the background darker.
Mhm.
Um, and so I'm very much a fan of Dracula.
Okay. And do you have it in your dot files? Or did you create a color scheme by a repo, or it's just in your dot files? Or
It's just in my dot files, and the reason I have it just here it's because like most color schemes would have um, overrides for like most of the plugins, and so when you open a color scheme repo, you would see that they have the highlight groups for snacks and blink and fzlua and telescope and all of that. And so here, by just having it here, I just have the groups that I'm interested on of the
mm,
plugins that I'm actually using. Um,
okay,
yeah.
okay, interesting. Okay. And what tool? Moving on to something else. What tool do you use to push to versioning control? Do you use lazygit or just terminal?
lazygit. I use
Yeah.
lazygit. I love lazygit. Well, if I need to push, I will just like use native GitHub commands.
Mm-hmm.
But I think lazygit is great. It's actually there's a funny story behind it, so I guess that I can show you too.
Yep.
So here, let me open Neovim, and so here opening gaze lazygit, and maybe zooming out a bit. Yeah. So you see these numbers beside like status and files and local branches, like the 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's because if you press 1, you navigate to that one. And so it's like the labels of the keys that you need to press in order to navigate through those panes.
Yep.
And so I added that feature to lazygit.
Oh.
And that has been the only feature that I've added to lazygit. My only experience with Go, because lazygit is written in Go. And yeah, I did add that feature. I added the feature without even installing Go LSP or Go LS. Because I knew that I wouldn't become a Go developer anytime soon, and I didn't want to do all of that setup just for this one feature. Um, but yeah, I think that LazyGit is great. Let me just maybe open the PR real fast.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
go ahead. I use that all the time. I use two, 'cause I always press two to go to my files. That's the one that I use the
right.
most. Or 3 as well
And
to go to the branches. 2, 3, 4. Yeah, I use the
right.
numbers.
And the reason that I ended up adding the feature is because, as your regular .file twinker, I was really happy with lazygit, but then I thought, let me see if there's something else, something different, something better. And
Mm-hmm.
there's like a lazygit that's written in Rust. It's called Git to UI,
Oh, I
and I
hadn't
didn't really
seen that.
like it. Yeah, I didn't really like it more, but I did like that feature of having the numbers because I would always forget like which is the number that I need to press in order to go to that pane. And so I ended up adding the feature, well, opening the issue, and then adding the feature to lazygit.
Oh, and when you have a feature like this one, for example, do you usually just submit the code or you have a discussion with the maintainer first? Because sometimes they will not
So
accept them, right? So,
right. And so usually I always start by creating a new issue and saying like, do you think that this feature makes sense in your repo? It aligns with your goals and like your philosophy. And so and I even said like, I don't even know if this is already supported and this is just a skill issue and I haven't read the manual.
mm,
Um, but yeah, at that point, the maintainer of lazygit told me like, yeah, go for it. And they were super nice. They were even like telling me exactly what to do,
mm-hmm.
um, and they were super nice.
Oh,
I was
okay.
also telling them, I don't know if it's somewhere in the discussion here. Yeah, maybe not here, but um, I was telling, and I also did this in my first Neovim PR. There's a lot of people that are afraid to open that first PR because they say like, "Oh, I've never contributed to an open source project, and I don't know how Git works." And I'm like, just go for it. People, like I used to be the kind of person that if I had a merge conflict, I would delete the entire repo and clone it again. And it was via my open source contributions that I stopped being scared of Git. Um, and I think that it's perfectly fine to just open the PR and ask maintainers like, "Hey, tests are failing, and I don't know why," or "Can you help me with this? I'm not very familiar with Go." I mean, I did this just right here. Like, "Hey, I'm having issues reading this setting," and then I get this error when running Go run. Um,
Oh, yeah, and it was kind. Okay,
right.
interesting. That's good to know. And to get, if there's people that wanna, I saw a Reddit post the other day. I don't know if you saw it or not. People asking like, what is needed to start contributing to Neovim? Well, I don't know if you have any idea or not, but what would you recommend to someone that wants to get started contributing to Neovim?
I would say if you don't know what you want, if you just want to contribute and you don't have a specific feature that you would like to work on, try to look for an open issue. And I would say before you jump right away into um, the implementation, try to just like try to think in your mind, like, okay, if I want this, which code would I need to modify? Where does the implementation live? And just read through the code base. Um, and once you have like a rough idea in your mind, like, okay, I would need to add this function to this file, then open a PR and open a draft PR. So, uh, and these might be like a controversial topic, but I think that I prefer to open a draft PR with maybe just updating the documentation of what I'm adding, just to make sure that other people know that there's already someone working on that issue, because it would suck that you start working on this and then a couple of days later someone else starts working on that, and then it's like,
Hmm.
okay, which implementation do we keep? So it's a good idea to open the draft PR just to tell, I'm interested in working on this. um,
Hmm.
if you later decide not to finish it because it ends up being more complicated than you initially thought, it's perfectly fine to do that. I've Sometimes I will open a PR and be like, I abandon it. Someone please take over.
Hmm.
And that's fine. But yeah, I would say going through open issues. Sometimes we add labels of difficulty easy or good for first time contributors. So you can also try filtering by those.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, so if it's a draft, if you open a draft PR, it's just a draft. So you can
Right.
get feedback there, right? Hey, don't work on this,
Exactly.
or yeah, we're interested in this, or no, no, no.
Right.
Okay, good
Yeah.
idea. Okay, okay. And are you a tmux fan or no? There's just two sides of it.
I So it's not that I'm not a fan. I've never used it. I've never had the need to use it. I use Ghosty right now. I used to be a Western user. Western is great. I'm happy with Ghosty right now. But normally my workflow is that I will have a single tab per folder that I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
And then for example, sometimes I will have Neovim open. Yeah, that would be a good idea. And so here, um, what I do is that I prefer to run terminal commands directly from like another split instead
Okay,
of from Neovim directly.
from the
And
Neovim
so,
terminal.
right. And so here, yeah, I guess that I can just run make doc, and then I would have Neovim here open. And so this is usually my regular workflow. I will have a tab per working directory, and then I will usually have Neovim open and then a terminal if I need to.
Okay, so each tab for you is a project, right? Like one tab is your
Yeah,
dotfiles, another tab is a Neovim, I don't know, core feature you're working on, another tab is, I don't know, a personal project. So,
exactly. Yeah.
okay, interesting. And in Neovim, you to open multiple files, I noticed that you don't have tabs at the top. Oh yeah, you do have tabs, right, at the top?
Yeah, I do use a buffer line for
Okay,
my
okay,
buffers. Yeah.
okay, 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 got it. And okay, thanks for sharing that. What else do we have here? I don't think we have any other. Well, let's talk about technical stuff first. Let's just cover all of those. I noticed that you're using Mac OS. Is there a reason why?
So I also have a framework laptop, and I use Linux. I'm a Arch Linux user as well. The reason that I'm using macOS for this call is because I don't. I mean, I've done some videos with my Linux setup, but given that I'm screen sharing and camera and all of this, I just prefer to use macOS and be safe. Then yeah, Linux
Okay.
can be a bit flaky with all of those.
Okay. So Arch is your main one then, right?
For development, yes. For work, I do use macOS.
Okay. You jump between the two. Okay. Okay. Interesting.
Yeah, and I
Okay.
personally prefer Linux much more. Yeah, if I could use Linux for everything, it would be great. Um,
Mhm.
I also tried the best of both worlds of Asahi Linux, um,
Mm.
and I used the Fedora distribution that they had, and it worked nicely. But again, that there were issues with screen sharing, and I couldn't use my Apple monitor, um, and then the main maintainer of that project kind of left
Yeah.
open source
Yeah.
entirely. So yeah, it's not going great.
Oh yeah, I asked yesterday. I did a live stream yesterday, and I asked the two Discord friends that joined what they thought about Asahi. I did follow the project. I never installed it, but yeah, it's you can use the Apple hardware, use a Linux distro,
Yeah,
and
yeah, and I do have to say that framework has been great. And I really love Arch Linux, and right now Asahi doesn't have Arch Linux support anymore. So yeah,
okay, the framework laptops, okay, and
yeah.
why did you decide to go with the framework? And because usually it's those framework, I've seen it a lot lately, and System 76.
Yeah. So I I had seen like very positive reviews of Framework. The CEO of Framework used to work at Apple, and so I feel that Framework laptops do have that feeling of a Mac. Um, I when I wanted to install Arch Linux, I did buy a ThinkPad, and it just feels too rough. I think pads are great, but my first computer was a MacBook, and I've been using Apple laptops all of my life, and so I'm used to that, like how delicate they feel, and I think that just felt like a brick. And so I think that frameworks are a great balance of that MacBook feeling with a laptop that it can still run Linux natively.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. And what are your thoughts on the other operating system, Windows?
I hate Windows. I mean, as I mentioned, I used to work at Microsoft, and Windows sucks. I hate the fact that not PowerShell, but like the command line,
Yeah.
you cannot ls, so it's
Yeah.
not even POSIX commands. You need to use dir, and
Yeah.
so I really hate that. Same with PowerShell. I'm like, yeah, PowerShell might be great, and you have all of these powerful functions, but I need to use ls. And yeah, I really don't like Windows in that regard. It's too slow. It's too ugly. It did have. I do think that some of the most nostalgic sounds ever are like the Windows Vista from the early 2000s, like when you're turning on a Windows machine. But yes, I'm not a fan of Windows at all.
Yeah, I don't do it on purpose. Every guest that I have had so far is not into Windows. Elijah, he's the creator of Harper, the Harper language server, which is like a Grammarly alternative. He was like, I don't
Right.
like Windows. Nobody in this, development environment, or yeah, likes Windows actually. But I guess I haven't had any Windows. I don't. And game developers probably love Windows
Right.
for sure. But yeah, I
I do
don't.
have to say that. So I did a lot of work with Visual Studio. In Visual Studio, um, like Windows is very powerful in the sense that it exposes a lot of operating system specifics to other applications. And so, for example, from Visual Studio, when we have new features, um, the day that those get released is by using feature flags that get registered in the Windows registry. And so
Mhm.
that's basically like a binary flag that's like, I don't know, new Copilot feature. And then that's written to the Windows registry from Visual Studio, and that's written in red. And so it's like you have this IDE that's using like this API to hook up into a registry that's only accessible via like COM APIs. And so I think that that's pretty cool how you can do a lot of hacky stuff
Mm.
from Visual Studio itself. And it's also definitely like shooting yourself in the foot. You can imagine the kind of bugs that you sometimes encounter when you have like these super powerful API that exposes so much operating system information to like other applications.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. But I don't know about you. I spend most of the day in the terminal, and I cannot work on the Windows terminal. Of course, there's
Yeah,
stuff like WSL, but still, you're virtualizing Linux there, and it's slower.
yeah,
Yeah, okay.
for sure.
Do you use a special tool for note taking, or how do you take notes?
I use OBS, and
Obsidian?
yeah, 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 not OBS. Um, yes, I use Obsidian. I use it like for my grocery shopping notes, and not a huge note taker. I used to
Okay.
have like lots of agendas, but then I would forget about the agenda, and I would need a note to remember to take notes. Um, but yes, like when I need to take notes, I will use Obsidian.
Okay. Okay. Wonderful. And how many minutes do you have left? Because we still have a few questions. We can finish the call here if you want to.
I'm happy to stay here like for another 10 minutes.
Okay. Okay. I'm just gonna ask. Let me see the most important ones, and we can wrap it up. Da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. Is there any one of these that you would like to discuss?
I guess that I can share about my keyboard.
Okay. Okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. Okay. Yep.
I've been let me I've been using a Moonlander
The
keyboard,
moonlander. Okay.
and it's been like almost a year since I used it. I used to just use the trackpad and like the keyboard on my laptops, but then I started noticing that I would get a bit of pain using the trackpad. So a lot of people say that it's like the keyboard itself. For me, it was most using the mouse.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like watching all of these. Like I still watch his videos. I think he's hilarious. Prime's videos, and I thought that it looks very cool when someone uses a split keyboard. And so I got the Moonlander. Um, it is one of the best purchases that I've ever made. I think that it's great. I don't know if you saw it, but I have like the rainbow colors, so it makes me
Mm-hmm.
feel like I don't know, it makes me feel great. So yeah, I'm very happy with the Moonlander. Would totally
When did you
recommend.
get it?
Around a year ago, I remember that I got it on May of last year.
Okay.
It did take a while to get used to.
Yep.
Um, because especially with the thumb clusters, it is weird to start using your thumbs when typing. But I think it's great. I take it to work. I take it everywhere when I travel as well. So
Yeah, I was also deciding. I was thinking about this. The one that I got is the Glove 80, but I was thinking
right,
about the Moonlander, the Glove 80, or the one that Prime uses. And I was like,
yeah, the kinesis.
yeah, I cannot afford more than one of these. My wife would kill me if I come and tell her
Yeah,
I need to buy another
yeah,
one. So I don't know. I went with this one. I have no experience with the other ones. I don't know how good they are or not.
yeah.
Okay, and we don't have much time left anymore. You mentioned that you used Ghosty AI. We don't need to cover this. Oh, last thing. Do you want to share three or your favorite Neovim plugins?
Yeah, for sure. So let me maybe open my dot files to make sure that I um, don't miss any of these. Um, so three, I would say that fs-lua for sure. I think it's the best picker ever. Very customizable. Um, then I would say mini.files for sure. That would be the
Mm-hmm.
second one. And then I also really like Flash
Mm-hmm.
from Folke. And
Yep.
so I know that there are a lot of people that have like opinions regarding um,
How
like
to
using these
jump.
kind of motion plugins instead of using like F and like the native ones from Vim Motions. But I think that Flash is great. One of my favorite things about Flash is, for example, what it calls um, remote motions, I guess. So here, when I'm in pending mode, and so if I want to, for example, like yank, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's like in pending mode because it's waiting for like the motion for the yank. And
Okay, okay.
so if at that point I press uppercase R, that will start Flash. And so here, I think this one would be better. So say that I want to paste tree-seeder search, the string, inside the parentheses of the remote. And so I would say yank, capital R, and then I would use Flash to select the thing that I want to paste. And so I want to select tree-seeder search. So at this point, I press L and I say around quotes and paste.
Oh,
And that's pretty cool because it allows you, because otherwise I would need to like
jump there,
here
copy.
and then go back and then paste. And so I find that to be pretty cool. And I definitely use that a lot with Flash.
That
It
is a
did take me a
wonderful. Yeah.
yeah, it did take me a very long time to learn how to like how it worked. Because Folky does document it, but you really need to understand like what does that remoteness mean. But once you get it, I think it's great.
Yeah. Yeah, good point. Because I jump. Let's say that I need to copy something. I jump VI quotes,
Right,
or
right, right, right,
YI quotes to copy it, and then I
right.
jump back to where I was, paste it. But
Exactly.
this makes you save a lot of time. Okay, wonderful.
Right.
Okay, so we don't have much time. Do you have any final words before we end the call? Anything you want to
No,
share?
I think that I've shared everything that I had in mind. This was great. Thanks for having me again.
Okay, wonderful. Thanks to you for showing up. And if there's someone still watching, if you like these type of videos, remember, let me know that in the comments. Like the video as well, so that tells me okay, they liked it or not. I'll share it in Reddit as well, Maria, if you're okay with that. And
Yeah, for sure.
okay, we're gonna see what people say. Okay, so thanks for stopping by. Till the next
Yeah,
time
thanks
then.
to you. Have a good one.